Quantification by XPS is typically reported as a quantification table involving atomic concentrations. From this table we can also calculate formulae that indicate the relative amounts of the material, and these are all calculated in this instance from a set of quantification regions applied to the oxygen, the silicon and the carbon, with the result that we see for this fused silica an SiO2 relationship between silicon and oxygen, and then in addition we have some contamination in the form of carbon. Atomic concentrations are calculated from regions, and these regions define a background for each one of these photoemission peaks, and the peak area above background is integrated. Then for each one of these peaks there are scaling factors that must be applied so that we can measure the amount of substance based on a photoemission peak. And the subject of this video is to look at these various correction factors and illustrate how they are applied to these data to produce a quantification that makes sense in terms of the material fused silica. The quantification steps that were used to create this quantification table can now be illustrated if we go back to the original data file. So here we have the spectra before any quantification regions or any other quantification adjustments have been made. And we'll start off by looking at the information on the region's property page, and this gives us a section down here which is very useful for understanding quantification adjustments to regions or components. So the first thing to note is the automatic tick box is ticked, and this indicates that a transmission function has been found in these data, and when quantification is performed the transmission function will be used. We also have the escape depth correction is type none, which means that no escape depth will be used when quantification is calculated. And also we've got an ADC, which stands for angular distribution correction, and the angle is set to 60. So when a relative sensitivity factor is extracted from the element library and a correction is required based on the angular distribution correction, then an angle of 60 will be used to calculate the new relative sensitivity factor that will be entered into the region. These corrections can be enabled and disabled using various options on other dialog windows, such as the angular distribution correction is available on the element library. You can say edit source analyzer angle, and this indicates that the angle is 60, and that's what's being reported here, and it also reports that the angular distribution correction is active, so corrections will occur when this tick box is ticked. The four steps that we'll use to correct the signal are Schofield cross sections that represent relative sensitivity factor, angular distribution correction that alters the relative intensity of peaks based on the angle between the X-ray source and the analyzer, and this means there will be a difference between s orbitals and p orbitals for this particular case because we have an angle of 60 degrees. Then the escape depth correction is designed to account for the differences in the rate at which electrons are scattered as a function of kinetic energy for a given material. So oxygen and silicon 2p both have significantly different kinetic energies, and so the escape depth is different, and as a result we have to make a correction, otherwise we will not obtain the amount of substance. And then finally we'll have to apply an appropriate transmission function correction. The transmission function is designed to account for how, as a function of kinetic energy, the signal that originates from the sample is attenuated as it passes through the lens system, the hemispherical analyzer, the detection system, and onto the data system. And all of these four different corrections are required in order to obtain a good quantification by XPS. Data used in this video derives from a set of experiments that were performed to produce this paper by Walton et al. And this paper includes further information about escape depth correction and how to correct for an overlayer material on silicon. We'll now go through and perform the quantification based on the fused silica. So we'll start by bringing up the element library, then the quantification parameters dialog window, and we'll use the element library to identify the peaks that we have. So if we say find peaks, we can see that it's indicated the different silicon peaks, carbon and the oxygen. And one way to proceed now is to press the create button, and this creates a region for each of the indicated elements, and it's selected one of the transitions in order to do the quantification, and in this case it's selected the silicon 2p. And if we look at the element library and click on the silicon 2p, we can see that the silicon 2p here has a relative sensitivity factor of 0.817. And the fact that we've got an angular distribution correction active means that the relative sensitivity factor that has been brought in from the element library has been corrected to allow for the differences in intensity due to the X-ray source and the analyzer being at an angle of 60 degrees rather than the magic angle for which no correction is required. These three regions have been defined automatically, so we should check that these regions make sense. So here we have one of these regions. If I click here, it indicates it's the silicon 2p, and what we would like to do is have a background that is appropriate for these data. Now there is a background that is silicon dioxide, 2GAR background that's predefined, that gives you cross sections that were published by 2GAR for the silicon dioxide. And having entered these, I'm going to change that to be a U3 2GAR background, and this is the background that was used within the paper by Walton et al. So this is appropriate now for the silicon. We can indicate a broader range for the background and integrate the signal above background to represent the silicon 2p. We need the same to apply for the oxygen 1s, because this is also going to have scattering principally by silicon. And the reason that I'm returning this to a U3 2GAR is that this U3 2GAR background will calculate, and let me just move here so I can see it, will calculate, the U3 2GAR background will calculate a limit for the region rather than using hard-coded values from the original 2GAR paper. So this will account for differences perhaps in transmission, or the original 2GAR paper would require transmission corrected data. So this is the advantage of using the U3 2GAR in this particular case. So the next question is, what should you use for the carbon? And the carbon will have a different background on the basis that signal that is must be from the surface. Since the material itself is a fused silica, we're expecting the carbon to be a contamination, and so it really has a different path for the electrons leaving the carbon compared to the silicon dioxide. So what we're going to do is just leave this as a U2 2GAR with a standard background set up using just the one parameter and a calculated parameter, hence 2 in the U2 2GAR. So perhaps we should adjust a few more of these regions and just make sure that we've got a fair quantification. So we'll look at these again. Alright, and now to assess this better, what we'll do is we'll look at a formula that is calculated from the region information here. So what we're going to use is we're going to have the tick box that says formula, and then we want it a live table, and that means that this table here changes, then the annotation will also change, and we want to use the active VAMAS block. That's to say we're going to collect the data for this table and the annotation from the spectrum that's displayed in the active tile. And once we're happy that we've got the right form for the annotation, we'll press the apply button, and a text string appears which will display the relationship between the different photoemission peaks. So let's zoom out and we'll place this so we can see it clearly. And I'll close the annotation so that we now have these active bars for the regions again. These went away once the annotation history page was up. That's so that you can adjust annotation without altering regions. But without the annotation history, we're back at the point where we can alter using the mouse these regions. But what we're interested in doing is constructing a meaningful formula here, and the formula derives from the tag strings. So if I go through and I set the tag strings to O, C and SI, then that's more in keeping with what we would normally see. And if I want to control my formula by the silicon, so I'm saying SI star 1, that we end up with a formula that says silicon 1, and it's calculated these other values relative to silicon having a value of 1. So if there's one silicon, we do not have the correct stoichiometry for fused silica. We would expect it to be 2 to 1 for oxygen to silicon. So let's now apply the next step in the calibration of these intensities. That is to say, we've got the transmission active, and the transmission is actually a National Physical Laboratory transmission function that has been calculated with this instrument. So that's the transmission that's being used rather than the standard transmission that came with the instrument. We've currently got the angular distribution correction adjustment, and that's so far so good, but we have no escape depth correction. So the next step that we need to do is correct for escape depth. So we'll just select and then apply information that can be gathered on this particular dialog window, where the escape depth correction is currently set to none. I've made a selection of all of these VAMAS blocks so that when I say effective attenuation length and press apply, it will then show me the listed selected VAMAS blocks, and I want to apply that to all of these. And once I do this, the formula then changes because the table has adjusted based on an effective attenuation length correction, and you can now see that the silicon 1 corresponds to close to 2 oxygen. So we now have something that looks closer to what you'd expect for fused silica. That's SiO2. The effective attenuation length correction for the escape depth is assuming you've got a homogeneous material of silicon dioxide, and we have here evidence that we have some carbon, and the carbon is probably an overlayer, and the sample is still a bulk silicon dioxide. But the fact that you have an overlayer may alter the quantification for the silicon and the oxygen. That is to say, the oxygen will be attenuated by an overlayer more than the silicon. So what we can do is look at another set of experiments, and these once again were performed in support of the Walton et al. Paper. And we have a set of similar survey spectra that were measured from different film thicknesses of plasma polymerized hexane on silicon dioxide. So when we have a very thin film, you can see a spectrum that is not dissimilar from the fused silica, and as the film thickness increases, you can see the evidence of the silicon and the oxygen, but these are now being attenuated, and the other evidence that these are buried is that the backgrounds are changing as a consequence of the thicker ppHex. So let's use the quantification, at least in the first instance, from the fused silica and propagate this to the set of data. So let's cascade so we can see both files. I'll close this so we can see it better. But here we have in this file we've got the fused silica and the quantification information. This is the file that contains the ppHex on silicon dioxide. So if I now propagate from the fused silica, and I'm going to propagate the regions and the annotation, and I'm going to say yes to that question, and that's because these all have different element transition fields from the spectrum that's in the fused silica file, but that's okay because these are all survey spectra and all equivalent to the fused silica in terms of the regions and the quantification that we were performing. So let's have a look at this one, and you can see now that if we're applying an effective attenuation length escape depth correction, which assumes a homogeneous material, then we no longer get the correct stoichiometry for silicon dioxide, and that's because we have a layer on top of the silicon dioxide that is attenuating these photoemission peaks from the silicon dioxide in different ways depending on the kinetic energy for these photoemission lines. So you can see that oxygen is attenuated more than silicon as far as this calculation is concerned. So now let's do a different type of correction, and this time we're going to use a correction that is based on not a bulk material, but we're going to use a layer of carbon on top of some other material, and so we're going to use what is referred to as a CH film correction. I need to enter a value here, so I'll put a value of 3 and I'll press apply, and this is going to update the selected VAMAS block, and we can see that the relationship between the silicon and the oxygen has changed as a result of that correction. So I'm going to do that one more time, and I need to increase the film thickness. The value entered here represents a scaling of a depth, so when I enter 6 and press update and apply, we end up with the stoichiometry that you would expect for silicon dioxide measured from a material that is buried beneath something that is about 4 nanometers of ppHex. So if you do not compensate for an overlayer, then the stoichiometry that you obtain by XPS will be incorrect.